The ideas for this video sparked after deeper reflection into how modern systems of social control operate in being complicit with crimes against humanity. I've had an interest in understanding more about psychological warfare for about a year now based on personal experiences that I've had, and you can see more on this from my video, Hidden Abuses No One Talks About. The topic of this video essay goes beyond that scope, and I believe this discussion will set the right tone for linking how socio-political worlds and systems of social control are really spiritual at their core and how technology is used to facilitate anti-humanist and globalist agendas. What if one of the most powerful illusions of modern society is the belief that science, technology, and spirituality exist in separate worlds? In this video essay, I explore the idea that the perceived separation between science, technology, and spirituality is not accidental, but a deeply embedded illusion that shapes how we understand progress, power, and what it means to be human. Inspired by my paper, The Greatest Magic Trick Played on Humanity, this discussion uses the metaphor of illusion and misdirection to examine how technological, political, and social systems often operate on a spiritual and symbolic level, even when they present themselves as purely rational or material. This video is not meant to sensationalize. Global events may be intensifying, but my intention is to encourage critical thinking, public education, and open discourse. I aim to show how belief systems and worldviews are always at play. Modern life is organized around a powerful, unquestioned assumption that technology and spirituality belong to separate realms of human experience. Technology is widely understood as rational, material, progressive, and innovative, while spirituality is framed as immaterial, symbolic, emotional, or primitive. This dichotomy is treated as a natural outcome of intellectual advancement and scientific progress, a necessary condition of modernization. However, this division is inaccurate. Rather, it is a historically constructed and produced illusion, one of the most consequential illusions ever sustained. This advances the central thesis that the greatest magic trick play on humanity is a belief that magic and technology belong to separate worlds. And far from being opposed, science, technology, and spirituality share overlapping structures and goals. The appearance of separation is not accidental, but carefully constructed to steer narratives that have real implications on making sense of global events. This breakdown offers an interdisciplinary analysis of science, tech, spirituality, psychology, sociology, and film studies in order to reveal recurring patterns that connect these domains. And examining these patterns allows for a broader understanding of how humanity interprets reality, meaning, and progress. It's becoming more clear that we are not actually governed by a democracy, but a technological oligarchy where the monopoly of power is in the hands of a few. This could mean tech billionaires using politicians to pull strings, making decisions on behalf of the majority, even without our knowledge and consent. A part of the illusion of democracy operates because we assume democratic ideals are at the foundation of politics and global governance, instead of looking behind the curtain to see who and what is pulling the strings. And if this is the case, then the protection of our digital identities is a necessary feature of security and national defense. At the epicenter of technological advancements is a post-humanist ideology where the end goal is the extinction of human beings and human welfare. This might sound absolutely insane, but unfortunately, post-humanism is not fringe or science fiction. These beliefs are among AI researchers and startup tech founders building out the technological and modern world. And you can find more information on this from Taylor Lorenz's video on YouTube called Tech Billionaires Want to. I'd like to offer an important disclaimer here. I'm not anti-AI or anti-tech, but after doing research for this video, it has become increasingly apparent that we have an ethical and moral obligation to ensure technological advancement and scientific progress is for the betterment of humanity. Also, I'm not a computer scientist or engineer. My background lies in political science, sociology, philosophy, and theology. And through interdisciplinary study and pattern recognition across history and personal observation, I aim to synthesize a larger conceptual framework. And for that reason, I welcome critique, collaboration, and feedback from scientists, technologists, and scholars across all disciplines in the interest of collective understanding. One of my favorite movies is the 2006 psychological thriller and science fiction film, The Prestige. I think this movie illustrates the illusion that mysticism, magic, and technology are fundamentally separated in a way that shows that magicians are not destroyed by the machine, but by the obsession amplified by technology. It reinforces the idea that technology doesn't corrupt by itself. It magnifies what already exists. This speaks to the dangers of accelerated technological advancement when ethics is not considered within the moral framework. In relating this to modern systems, this perceived division between the technological and the spiritual constitutes the greatest magic trick ever played on humanity. Technology from this perspective is not something humans purely invented, but something we access or tapped into through inspiration, acting as a conduit between the material and spiritual realms. This disillusionment of spirituality marks the beginning of modernization as described by sociologist and political economist Max Weber. His concept of rationalization and disenchantment reflects a cultural shift toward a strictly scientific mindset, one that separated religion and spirituality to an inferior domain. Yet, science and spirituality often share similar ultimate aims, including the pursuit of transcendence, meaning, and even immortality. The illusion of opposition between these domains is essential to maintaining that separation. And like any good magic trick, it only works if the audience believes the misdirection. At our core, we are spiritual beings having a human experience, rather than humans having a spiritual experience. Science and spirituality need not be adversaries. Science gathers the data and measures phenomenon, while spirituality interprets meaning and purpose. Understanding their overlap requires a framework that honors both. To understand the present, we must examine the past. History demonstrates a recurring human preoccupation with origins, knowledge, and immortality. Both science and spirituality seek to explain how life began and what it ultimately means. The biblical account of creation in Genesis introduces the symbolic association between knowledge and the apple. Genesis 3:6 describes the act of eating from the tree of knowledge as a turning point in human history. Whether interpreted literally or metaphorically, this narrative establishes an enduring iconography linking knowledge, transgression, and transformation. Pattern recognition is foundation across all disciplines. The scientific method itself relies on identifying patterns within interconnected systems to uncover underlying structures. And this shared reliance on pattern recognition makes comparison between scientific and spiritual narratives not only possible, but necessary. I'll be discussing two central ideas to lay the groundwork for what I believe is the basis for understanding the value of human life. First, there's intelligent design. Intelligent design proposes that life is best understood as a product of intentional creation rather than undirected processes. It does not deny microevolutionary change, but argues that complexity, order, and information point toward purposeful design. Historically, proponents like Isaac Newton viewed the structure of the universe as evidence of an intelligent cause, stating, "The most beautiful system of the sun, planets, and comets could only proceed from the counsel and dominion of an intelligent and powerful being." He points to not only creation, but the cosmos and beyond. On the other hand, there's abiogenesis, which proposes that life emerged from non-living matter through chemical processes over time. While widely accepted within scientific discourse, abiogenesis has not been directly observed, replicated, or conclusively proven. Laboratory simulations have failed to demonstrate the spontaneous emergence of life, raising philosophical and scientific questions about its explanatory power. This tension highlights a broader debate about what qualifies as scientific explanation. While evolutionary processes such as adaptation and variation are observable, their reliance on abiogenesis as a foundational origin falls flat. Understanding origin narratives matters because they shape expectations for humanity's future. Transhumanism, often framed as the next stage of human evolution, raises ethical questions about human identity, embodiment, and the soul. See, without a belief in intrinsic human value that's rooted in creation, the transformation of humanity into machine hybrid forms becomes easier to justify from the standpoint of abiogenesis paired with Darwinian macroevolutionary explanations, whereas the Genesis account emphasizes the uniqueness of humanity through the concept of the soul. Genesis 2:7 states, "And the Lord God formed man from the dust of the ground and breathed into his nostrils the breath of life, and man," meaning all of mankind, "became a living soul." This signifies a personal act of creation that distinguishes humanity from all other creatures. And this raises a critical question for me. How do purely material explanations account for consciousness, morality, subjective experiences, and the soul? As believers in intelligent design and a creator, we already know how the story unfolds. And if the scientific method is based on observable evidence and predictability, then the fulfillment of biblical prophecy is a hallmark of the testament of verifiable proof of God and his infinite intelligence, since intelligence is the ability to predict the future with accuracy. Biblical prophecy is often misunderstood as fatalistic by many. Rather than removing free will, prophecy can be understood as foresight based on cause and effect. Knowledge of outcomes does not eliminate choice. Instead, it contextualizes our responsibility. And so despite the fall and condemnation of mankind, here's the good news. We have the ability to choose how the story ends. And in this sense, we become co-creators of our reality. And even though we made wrong choices, God's grace and mercy allows us to start over after having seen the effects and the final form of sin. That's redemption, that's salvation, and that's love. Technology, on the other hand, increasingly promises forms of pseudo-redemption, immortality and transcendence, and salvation through innovation. As philosopher Mark Kuckelberg observes, transhumanism often echoes religious promises often associated with Christianity. He states, "Perhaps the most powerful myth and one that can help us understand why transhumanism and human enhancement are attractive to many is that technology could do what popular Christian religion has always promised us, offer us immortality." In line with transhumanist ideologies pushed by technological advancement is the concept of singularity, which is the idea that humans will merge with artificial intelligence, and this was popularized by computer scientist and futurist Ray Kurzweil. He argued that singularity would likely occur around the middle of the 21st century. This idea of combining nanotech with biological engineering to create what they believe are more intelligent beings, all in the name of scientific progress and the longevity escape velocity, which is another way of expanding your lifespan, according to them, another way of achieving transcendence and immortality. What can we discern from CERN? CERN is a liminal space, a space that is in between two separate spaces, a space other dimensions can pass through as a portal. CERN is symbolic of ritual, science, and tech, representing a point of convergence with spirituality. Spaces like CERN allow for interdimensional activity. Many scientists claim that the Hadron Collider allows for interdimensional beings to cross over into our reality. And it's said that this machine has opened portals. This isn't hard to believe since that represents both the technological and spiritual underworld, as scientists were even caught performing a ritual sacrifice on their own grounds right where the Hadron Collider operates. Not to mention, CERN was intentionally built on the ancient site of the Roman temple to Apollo, known as the gateway to the underworld. The facilities are even filled with numerous occult symbolism, including a statue of Shiva, the Hindu deity of destruction. The film Prestige also highlights that across all technological domains, technology requires power, energy, and sacrifice. Left unchecked, we run the risk of allowing dark entities into our reality, and eventually we will understand the true cost behind blindly giving up our power to the machine. Even the real-world inventor and innovator of the Tesla car, Elon Musk, stated, "With artificial intelligence, we are summoning demons."
Musk spoke at a symposium at MIT.
With artificial intelligence, we are summoning the demon.
I'm sure many view this as a joke, but the truth is in plain sight. In neuroscience, metaphors create multi-sensory neural binding, which makes it easy for information to stick and be imprinted in your memory. Technological language is saturated with spiritual symbolism, and it borrows heavy from spiritual language, some more plain than others. Terms such as cloud, demon, domain, portal, and code carry meanings that transcend their technical definitions. This overlap suggests that technology functions not merely as a tool, but as a symbolic system shaping human consciousness, especially when we speak of other words like Windows, viruses, systems, generations, Apple, monitors. And then there's sub-ideas like geofencing, devices, neural networking versus rewiring of your brain, projections, gematria, numerology, metaphysical in the metaverse, cursors versus curse. And if you'd like a more in-depth explanation of what I mean by this, I can provide that one-on-one. And if there's something that you think I missed, I welcome feedback on that as well. The brain is wired by neurochemical patterns. We experience reality through electrical signals interpreted by the brain. As sensory organs convert external stimuli like light, sound, touch, taste, etc. into electrochemical signals that travel through the nerves, which the brain then constructs into our perception of the world. Essentially, a form of controlled hallucination or best guess of reality. What we call real is the brain's generated model, built from electrical patterns, not a direct feed of the external world. This process reveals how easily we can be programmed socially, psychologically, and technologically. These metaphors are not neutral. It conditions how we understand agency, responsibility, and identity. Projects like MKUltra demonstrated that the human mind could be fragmented, conditioned, and manipulated. And today, similar outcomes are also achieved through algorithms, social media, surveillance, and behavioral conditioning. The 2020 documentary, The Social Dilemma, really contextualizes this idea as it shares an insider perspective as to the role of social media in shaping public and private spheres, highlighting the fact that we are programmable by nature. We feed the machine our data, and the machine feeds us. It even equated our digital identities to that of a voodoo doll. Film, media, and art shape collective imagination. Through repetition, symbolism, and emotional resonance, narratives can prime entire societies to accept certain futures. What is often labeled predictive programming may instead be understood as large-scale cultural conditioning that contributes to self-fulfilling prophecies, what I refer to as creative programming. And if we have the capabilities of creating our programming, then we also have an ethical and moral responsibility to create and envision a different outcome for future generations that does not see human life as expendable. And in line with programmable thoughts and behaviors, there's astroturfing, which is the practice of fabricating the appearance of genuine grassroots opinion in order to manipulate public perception. It relies on coordinated tactics such as fake accounts, automated bots, paid commenters, and orchestrated campaigns designed to simulate organic support or opposition. While these efforts appear spontaneous, they are deliberately engineered to influence how people think, feel, and behave. This manipulation is especially dangerous from a Jungian psychological perspective, as Carl Jung emphasized that humans are deeply shaped by shared values, systems, collective imagination, and unconscious social influence. What appears to be widely believed or commonly felt can activate collective psychological responses, driving social contagion and reinforcing group behavior, what many call the hive mind or groupthink. When people perceive an idea as dominant or socially validated, they are more likely to adopt it, often unconsciously. Astroturfing exploits this dynamic by manufacturing consensus. By flooding digital spaces with artificial agreement or outrage, it creates the illusion of collective belief, undermining authentic dialogue. This is why it's important to challenge even your own belief systems, because we are rarely ever given an objective and unbiased view outside of our own echo chamber algorithms. And challenging your own systems and beliefs can help you stay more present and grounded. Not to mention the dangers of deepfakes having the potential to proliferate propaganda and spread of misinformation. And for this reason, we need clear laws against this, or at the very least, clearly identify deepfake disclosure for when it's being used.
Unnatural eye movement is another signal that a video may not be what it seems.
Killmonger was right.
Imagine a thought experiment where there's a proliferation of misinformation online with the use of AI, CGIs, and deepfakes, getting people riled up out in the streets to protest, and in line with the Hegelian dialectic of problem, reaction, solution, there's the militarized weapons of DEWs, which is directed energy weapons, and EMFs, which are electromagnetic frequencies, used to control and pacify people. These are some examples of technologies that could also be used to influence and control human behavior, and there are numerous documents and reports on how this tech is used and their effects. Symptoms of EMF and DEWs include, but are not limited to, burning sensations, redness, fatigue, tiredness, concentration difficulties, dizziness, nausea, heart palpitations, difficulty sleeping, digestive disturbances, and brain damage. There are some natural remedies for built-up EMF, like grounding techniques involving 10 to 20 minutes barefoot on the grass, dirt, or stone, which helps to discharge built-up EMF and restore natural rhythm to your biofield. You could also do salt baths with bentonite clay, as well as mental exercises like meditation and visualizations to reset your parasympathetic nervous system. In the era of big data, digital identities, and predictive analytics, humanity faces unprecedented levels of surveillance and behavioral monitoring and modeling. This implies we are not only subject to being misled by programming or astroturfing, deepfake influences, but our very own behavior can be predictive as well. This calls for more strict and transparent regulation for apps known for data collection, tracking, and centralization, security, and predictability, like Palantir, Snowflake, Databricks, and Oracle. Psychology explains how individual and group behaviors originate. Sociology shows how those behaviors spread, repeat, and become stable across societies. And of course, large software platforms analyze massive amounts of data to detect and model these recurring patterns at scale. Metaphysics and systems thinking then step in to explain what kind of combined system emerges when predictive technologies like those and humanity interact. In this sense, even if companies like Oracle and Palantir do not reveal the collective unconscious itself, it transforms data into practical models that can be used for prediction and decision making. This becomes especially concerning if fully automated by AI or in the wrong hands. In a video by Beyond Ideas, it echoes the idea that humans are not the ones behind the AI push and revolution, but governments and corporations, and that we are not the decision makers, but the test population. And I'd even add, after watching The Social Dilemma again, that we aren't just being tested, we are being sold. We become the products as users, so being more consciously aware of this manipulation is imperative for autonomy and agency. It's not just a misaligned AGI that could threaten humanity's life and freedoms, but a misaligned being and structures that are not on humanity's side. If a system becomes that dangerous, it's because we opened every door for it and called it progress. These sentiments carry heavy spiritual undertones. We need a human in the loop, not just scientists in the loop workflows. This is the only way to regulate and guide the lack of boundaries and ethics in AI. We need real people making real decisions for the betterment of the whole, not a machine monopolizing on decisions via data collection, tracking, and analytics. With predictive modeling and immersive environments, reality becomes highly manipulatable. If not navigated consciously, individuals may unknowingly adopt external energetic patterns or identities. This can lead to spiritual disorientation, in which the self becomes a projection, not an actual presence. Without ethical boundaries, such systems risk reducing human beings to data points, stripping agency, privacy, and spiritual identity. Movies like The Matrix and dystopian novels like A Brave New World are closer to science fact than fiction now more than ever. Max Weber warned of the iron cage of modernity, a world where rational systems trap humanity in meaninglessness. When science and technology are divorced from spirituality, they risk becoming instruments of control rather than liberation, chaos rather than progress. We are in the era of Web 3.0, the metaverse, and digital IDs. This is virtually and literally a new world being created, linking our virtual identity to real outcomes that can be tracked, monitored, predicted, and controlled. True freedom requires knowledge, informed consent, and moral grounding. And as it states in Hosea, God said, "My people are destroyed for lack of knowledge." I believe awareness can stop some catastrophic events from unfolding, and information equips individuals to navigate reality with discernment. Dre Dossier, in her video on YouTube entitled Stargate LLC, an American AI project kind of, states power consolidates in the boring bureaucratic structure that no one wants to pay attention to. And I agree, but I have faith that we will finally begin to pay attention so that we are not led astray by this illusion any longer. We aren't prisoners because technology is evil. We are prisoners because we are taught not to see its spiritual dimension. The veil between science, tech, and spirituality is thinning. Recognizing and legitimizing their interconnectedness may be the first step toward reclaiming human agency, meaning, and responsibility in an increasingly techno-spiritual world. The iron cage of modernity tightens when we deny meaning, intention, and our responsibility. And this happens when technology is divorced from ethics and spirit. It becomes then an instrument of domination rather than liberation. The trick played on humanity was not the invention of technology. It was convincing us that it has no soul, no values, and no metaphysical consequences. And only by reintegrating science, tech, and spirituality can we step beyond this illusion. In the 1995 film, The Usual Suspects, is the quote, "The greatest trick the devil ever pulled was convincing the world he didn't exist." This encapsulates the idea that one of Satan's most effective deceptions is to make people believe he is not real, allowing evil to flourish unnoticed. That concludes this video. Thank you so much for listening. Please like, share, and subscribe, and let me know what you think so we can increase our awareness as a collective and become better prepared for how things will play out.